Hi guys, tonight I want to talk with you about soil. So in the past few posts I've talked about sort of the magic holy trinity, which is sun, soil, and water to get great growing plants. So yesterday we talked about seeds, like seed preparation, seed planting, things that you can buy now. That's what I'm going to talk about soil next, because you're going to want to start thinking about where you're going to get your soil, what kind of soil you can source from your yard, great areas that are, weed free and have rich soil already, areas that you can till, and then local sources of good growing soil. Additionally, something to consider as you map out your garden is to think outside of the raised bed. Where can you put little pockets of plants and capture sun in one section of your yard? Where might you utilize the same sunny spot on a balcony? And where might you really benefit from a raised bed experience where you can easily go and sort of work with what you have in front of you, weed without hurting your back? There's all these sort of reasons why people go with a traditional raised bed. But one of the things that I've noticed over the years is that raised beds absorb a ton of soil, meaning you need to use a lot of soil to fill them. And that's really expensive. It's actually enormously expensive. And so there are a lot of ways that you can kind of circumvent your way around that by putting woody debris in the base. That creates not only a really important source of drainage, but it also provides stuff that's going to slowly break down and add to your soil health over time. Rather than doing like the traditional putting a bunch of rocks in there for drainage. Put in something there that's going to feed your soil. So what I was going to do is start with a container, because I know a lot of you are doing container gardens. And then I'm going to show you the soil that we just got delivered today. And then I'm going to take you to an area that's totally work in progress. It's going to be our kitchen garden. And it used to be a manicured area of the yard, and so right now it's just a total mess. We'll show you what that looks like. And then I will show you what our hugelkultur beds look like. Okay, so here is a very peaty, as in it has a ton of peat moss, hanging basket that we got last year. And it's been like living underneath the porch, so it has not been receiving any water. Totally, completely impossible to plant in. But if you add some water to it, you will immediately see the soil health start to change. It becomes more workable. So what you want, water if you need to, add fertilizer, and then pull from some good soil to bring in your nutrients without wasting all this good stuff, right? So check this out. We got 5 yards delivered today. It's from Tills, which is a local family-owned company on the island. I adore them. We've been buying from them for years. This is an awesome composition soil. Look at it. You'll see the heat escaping from this stuff. Can you see that steam?
No.
No?
That's okay, though.
There is steam rising from this. It's actually hot to the touch down here. So it's 60% compost that is locally sourced. 30% Ollie organic fish compost, which is basically what I consider steroids for plants. It's amazing stuff. And 10% sand, which you need in order to create great drainage. So what I would do for this, to go back to our container and utilizing any kind of dirt that you already have, you could stuff this full of basil and have pesto for days, weeks. So what I would do is just really grab this soil, right, and working. You're going to want to dig down, because once again you're thinking about root systems, and what you're trying to do is create something that the roots are drawn to. Your roots are going to want to go deep into the soil, and you're going to want to attract them. So rather than just doing a top dressing and sort of a light weeding and then sort of mixing the top up, you actually need to go down a good foot or more, especially if you are dealing with any kind of root vegetable like carrots, beets, turnips, rutabagas. They literally will grow like this big if they can. And if you give them the space to do that, they will. So this is tricky soil that would not work well for us to plant in. I've got my trusty screwdriver. I want to show you what we're dealing with, right? This is hard packed stuff. It has heavy clay content, like really, really, really dense, muddy. Mud and clay is basically your garden's enemy. When you imagine the fragile root structures of an herb trying to establish itself in this soil, it's just not going to happen. The other issue that you run into with old soil that you don't know anything about, that's potentially fill dirt that's been brought in, which we do believe some of this area was filled, is you really don't know what kind of toxins and weird runoff you might have in your soil. This is far enough away from the house that I'm not worried about, for example, any lead contamination from the old home that we have. It's 1901. I'm assuming that they painted with lead at some point. It's not an issue anymore. It's covered with paint and it's sealed in tight. But over the years, if anybody sanded that siding and it landed in the soil below, that soil is full of lead. And in fact, that's a huge issue in urban environments. When you're dealing with an area like Seattle that has a ton of old homes, and those sidings have been sanded and painted years, in a row, you can see lead levels in there that are just intense. You don't want that to end up in your family's food. So if you are dealing with a space that you like because of location, sun, this actually gets a lot of great sun, and it's really close to our house. It will be very easy to access for kitchen garden uses. But the soil is not great. Don't let that deter you. And actually, there are a lot of things that you can do to naturally raise up your beds. Most likely going to do with this is a dressing of woody debris, and we'll do sort of what I would call like a smaller hugelkultur bed. We'll bring in straw to cover the layers of branches, and then we'll bring in our good soil. And we'll probably do it kind of in a spotty way based on where we really want to plant. We're not going to waste our good soil. So now I'm going to show you what our hugelkultur bed looks like. And I will say that this area where we did all of these was boggy, and we chose it for that reason. I wanted an area that was wet, that was relatively unusable for the kids, and that was going to be a natural spring of water underneath our beds, because they're a no water bed, and so that's perfect for this. Hugelkultur beds also work really well in dry, arid environments because they hold the water and produce this rich environment that doesn't require water as well. But 4 years in, I've amended this a couple times, but look at that. I haven't done anything to it yet, right? It's just loose and rich. You can often tell whether a soil is rich by how dark it is. You don't want something that looks like sand. It's going to be really tricky to grow in. And underneath all of this is this massive network of chicken coop refuse, straw, branches. Here's a bale of straw that we're going to take and basically like fill in these holes. So this bale of hay, I think, is $10 to $12. And what it does is provide this awesome heat producing chamber of goodness underneath your bed. It absorbs water. As it decomposes, it produces a ton of heat, and it produces lightweight drainage system for your plants. So for $11, you can raise a bed up, you can provide heat, drainage, nutrients, and water absorption, and then you can make your soil go farther. I wanted to finish here because I wanted to show you that, as with all things, sometimes things just have to look worse before they look better. So this is going to be our kitchen garden, right? It was a lot prettier before we started tearing it up, but it's going to be gorgeous. I have ideas on Pinterest, which I totally recommend. It gives you these awesome ideas of whatever scale of garden that you're wanting to do, whether list or if you want to go large scale and have everything climbing and vertical gardens everywhere. We want to make this feel like a secret garden, and it's going to take a while to get there. Do comment below. It just helps all of us to see what you're doing, what you're thinking about. If you have suggestions, I always love hearing those. Or you can direct message me. A lot of you have been doing that, and that's great. I love hearing about what your questions are, and they really help guide and direct what I'm doing, because I want to help you garden. And if a little bit of it helps you sort of get even closer to a sense of food sustainability and food growth, and more than anything, the joy of seeing something grow, I would be thrilled.